Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Nihilistic Realism podcast. I am Niall, and my fiancée Emilia has been wanting to interview me in regards to various aspects of my philosophy for some time now. So we decided to do so while recording ourselves, such that these thoughts are documented for posterity. Some episodes will be more focused on specific themes, while others will be more general. And while most will be in an interview format, others will just be conversations. Just so you are forewarned, there is belching and coughing and other human noises ahead. I don't see a point in censoring them, and personally, I find them funny and endearing. Thank you for being here, and without further delay, on to the interview.
What is the difference between morality and justice? Or was the difference and connection between? So let's start with morality, because you define it quite well in nihilistic realism when you talk about immorality to be a logical failing, that to be moral you have to have well-reasoned values, you have to understand what anything actually is, what it means to suffer, what it means to be a good person, because morals come down to
your comprehension of reality and how subjects operate within it relative to one another.
Yes, without intersubjectivity there is no
Yes,
morality,
without multiple subjects there is no morality, fundamentally. So there you have subjectivity, and if there's you could have just subjectivity with no multiple subjects of any kind, and therefore no type of intersubjectivity if you had like an invented AI or a Boltzmann brain. But
what? Sorry, can you?
If you had a Boltzmann brain, like a mind emerging in a void, or a AI, like an artificial being created, then you could have a singular subjectivity with no intersubjective comparisons. So it would be just a singular subjective agent, and the concept of intersubjectivity would have no application here, and as such, the concept of morality would have no application here.
Can especially, you be immoral to yourself, like make bad choices and like is it immoral to do bad things to yourself?
That gets complicated because it's more about the interplay of subjects and the reality of intersubjective similarity between those subjects. To have morality,
we won't talk about
because self morality and singular entity morality is a whole other domain of thought, and you already asked like a 2-part question.
Yes, okay, back to difference between morality and justice. So we talked about morality as all of the above, to do with multiple subjects.
Well, multiple subjects and how they interact, and the fact that they share that they share objectively similar subjectivities. The fact that there are subjective agents that objectively share similar subjectivities is the basis of the concept of is the basis of the concept of intersubjectivity. And once you have a situation wherein organisms are evolving in increasing degrees of complexity, and it's a constant game of life and death, allies becomes useful in terms of the mathematics of life, like even before subjects are aware of themselves, just in the game of life, not killing absolutely everything around you is an advantageous strategy. Mathematically, it's been worked out in multiple places.
Yeah, well, just cooperating with others.
Just cooperation inherently, yeah, exactly.
Accomplish more than what you can do alone.
Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game cooperation. But yes, the basis of morality is eventually, from the intellectual standpoint, once organisms gain awareness of themselves and of their environments and of intersubjective similarity between agents.
Because the big thing is cats can't have morality.
Yes, cats don't have moral responsibility for killing mice because they have no idea what's going on. Even though they're like, that is the basis of morality, the fact that mice aren't killing each other and cats aren't killing each other, technically you could call it a rudimentary form of morality. That is rooted in their instinct, but it isn't a loop of self-awareness. It isn't a conscious decision. Whereas when subjective agents, subjectivities get to a certain degree of awareness, then it becomes a matter of their comprehension of the reality in which they emerge. And it can actually rebound. It can go from this programmed in thing to a rebound to absolute chaos because they're scared and they have no idea what anything is, to back to morality again because they realize that, oh shit, yeah, no, this is actually the most viable thing for everyone. And like this just makes sense because like, oh shit, I'm a mind and you're a mind and we're both experiencing similar phenomena and we would both rather not have our legs chopped off, and for similar objective reasons, and we both need food and we both need water and we both need shelter and all these things that are like inherent to our common struggle that literally just point in the direction of a framework that we would call morality by any other name. Just like a framework of science by any other name is essential to the idea of making sense of objective reality in between subjectivities, since we're all stuck in our own minds, but we are all emerging in an objective reality that is consistent, regardless of the subjective hallucination that we're all generating. But yeah, how that relates to justice, though, justice is more about like equilibrium. It's more about like, okay, so this is what morality should be. This happened to break it. How do we respond to that?
So
How do we
trying
to restore equilibrium after morality has been broken?
Oh, interesting.
Because like justice is pointless unless the equilibrium has been disturbed. If morality is perfect and the equilibrium is never disturbed, then there's no need for a phenomena of justice. The phenomena of justice comes into play after that fact. So the phenomena of justice is about how we figure out like what do we do in response to breaches of moral systems. And that usually comes down to like discerning the nature of the breach and like the responsibility of the agents involved and what they actually understood and what they didn't and what the conditions were that led them to do what happened. If it was like brain tumors or poor life conditions or like poor reasoning, like just as a cat isn't responsible for killing a mouse, a lot of the times murderers aren't fully coherent of the implications of the fact that they've just murdered a person. Like, I'm not saying they're not responsible, because like everyone gets up in arms when you start talking like that, but like on some level they aren't cognizant of the implications of their act, and if they are and they're reveling in it, then something is fundamentally broken with that person. Like, we're talking on the neurological basis of the neurological and intellectual basis of morality and how it emerges within like aware agents that are aware of themselves and each other and their environment and are sentient or past the point of monkeys and apes and what we are just barely emerging from. And on that level, like, yeah, we're just barely emerging from it. We're in the emergent stage, and in that emergent stage you're going to have different degrees of different people in different places that are emerging out of it in great ways, and others which are just barely teetering on chaos and still killing each other. And you have holocausts and Talibans and killing squads.
Okay, I have a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's justice on the level of like obvious one being law, where someone did something wrong, and then you're trying to
yes,
their bad actions should have consequences.
Not only law, but like more like that's what justice is in the concept of morality in general. It's like justice only emerges as an attempt to as a response to a moral breaching.
Which is funny because
moral injustice, because that's what injustice is. Injustice is moral breaching, so justice is an attempt to reestablish that.
Even monkeys have a bit of a sense of justice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if someone does something that obviously hurts the average benefit of everyone else, then they have to do something to make up for that. Otherwise, something else will happen in response to that, and they'll likely get banished and whatnot. Like there is
they can recognize when there's a
justice is about the ebbs and flows and the disequilibrium of morality. Like morality is a struggle to attain equilibrium of like, okay, we're all struggling against reality itself. Reality itself is trying to kill us. Can we all just get along and trying to mitigate that? That's fundamentally what morality is about. And when that gets breached, and it's like, no, fuck you guys, I want all the food. Fuck your existence. My existence matters.
I'm just gonna kill you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's injustice. It's breaking the attempted equilibrium that morality posits. That morality is striving for. The attempt to live in peace.
Trying to have justice, quote unquote, after something has been breached on an individual level, but then there's also justice on a societal level in terms
society is just a bunch of individuals, so you just multiply the base problem essentially.
Yeah, so like it is unjust to like segregate different groups and say you're not allowed to do this. And so justice is something that gets reasoned through with time.
Just as like the culture's awareness of the concept of morality gets reasoned towards over time as people get better on average at reasoning. Because on average, our species is fucking terrible at reasoning. We prize ourselves on it because some of us are really good at it and it's lifted the rest of us. And like some of us are really good at it in compartmentalized ways, and those compartmentalized aspects of their brains has lifted both the other aspects of themselves and the entirety of the rest of humanity to great heights, to the point where that can let us
Think that as a
forget.
species that we're really smart
Yes,
when on an
forget that we're just
individual
barely
level.
forget that we're just barely emerging out of the absolute chaos,
How
out
many
of the.
people recognize that like thinking itself like is hard, like to have a
Well, they
well
don't.
structured
People don't
reasoned
think
thought?
that thinking is hard because they live in the mode of thinking that is easy. There is an aspect to thinking that is easy, and if you just
Yes,
spend all of your time in that
well
aspect only,
structured thought. I mean,
yes,
it's hard.
well structured and deliberate thinking is difficult, but not doing that is profoundly easy, and that's where most people operate most of their time. Like deliberate thinking is for like, oh fuck, I got to do my taxes. Uh,
Yeah, or oh fuck, I have to go to this job and
yeah.
do these tasks.
Yeah. Or like, oh shit, there's a novel problem that I have to face. But like most of the time, that operation is yeah, the blind spot, the normalization blind spot. Most of the time, people are in that mode where things are just normal and they're not operating in any. But like when there's things that are outside of that blind spot, that's when the secondary kicking mode kicks into gear. Sorry, the secondary thinking mode kicks into gear. That's when the secondary kicking mode thinks into gear. Yeah.
Yeah, so things can only become more just and more morality when there's well reasoned understandings of what
The
this even is.
the basis of it is a comprehension of reality across the population, and like critical thinking skills like being common, because otherwise you both of these concepts get skewed, and if everyone has a different definition for what these concepts are, then what are we doing?
Which concept? Sorry,
Morality and justice.
just a different
If
definition for
people,
what they even
yes,
are.
when everyone has a different definition of what these
Yes,
things even are,
some
then
people think that morality is whatever the holy book says, what God thinks is best based on what some humans have written down a long
and
time
then
ago.
there's other people who think it's this other book for the
Yeah,
same reasons.
yeah.
Yeah, and both of them lack critical thinking skills as to like what makes something likely to be true and what makes something not, and what qualifies as a fantasy, what the objective subjective distinction is, like
So
core
sometimes
dichotomy of realism.
injustices can go undetected because they fall within our normalization blind spot. It's like, oh, that's just how society is, like
Often
homelessness or
immorality and
slavery.
injustice is widespread because most people's conception of immorality and injustice and morality and justice are completely and utterly skewed from what the concepts actually are and how they are tied to reality. And most people's concepts are based in definitional frameworks that are themselves utterly detached from reality and based entirely in fantasy. So when that is the case, well, good luck having justice in the world or moral principles dominating, because most people don't know what the hell anything is.
Yeah, they'll say it's like justice to go murder a bunch of people who
Yeah, or bury a gay child alive in India.
or kill the people who don't believe in your god anymore or
Yeah, ad nauseum. Ad absolute nauseum. Onward.
okay. So you gave a pretty good understanding between morality and justice, how justice is a response to trying to redress the like finding a balance when
Well,
something immoral has been done, right?
it's a response to the breaking of balance. Like, because morality is an attempt to achieve like peace, an attempt to like have the reality of our circumstance acknowledged, and immoral acts are acts that like go starkly against that attempt, or starkly against like the reality of the circumstances that define that attempt, like the fact that like, we all have to eat, we all have to, like as I said, and then justice is a concept that comes into being in order to maintain that. It's like, okay, so here's the moral ideal, here's what we're trying to work towards, here's what we define as morality, and then here's how we enforce it, and here's our justification system, here's our not justification system, here's our response system to when things go awry, and they inevitably do. Like the very concept of wanting justice is like wanting things, like you feel like something went wrong and that there needs to be some sort of like thing things need to restabilize.
Thank you for that. That was very insightful. So each, last point of note, each individual situation that arises has to be reasoned through to figure out why it might be like a harmful thing, and like it's really complicated by nature.
Just like the concept of truth, the concept of right and wrong is a situation specific thing. It's like, okay, what are the variables? What are the exact conditions of the exact situation? What are every variables, every thought being had in every mind, every intention, every act, like every like the sequence, like everything, like
There's
what are
no
the details?
black and white rules
It's
for,
in
like,
the
follow
details
this
that you
and
will find what is like, yeah, what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing. Like it's because it's a matter of reasoning, and reasoning requires the details of a situation.
So
like it's not
you can't simplify justice to
is murder
follow
wrong?
these
Well, no.
rules and-
Here's a situation. Is stealing wrong? Well, no. Here's a situation.
So when religions have commandments or things that can never be breached, it's actually dumb because it doesn't reflect the actual reality of our situations.
Yes.
Okay.
She was essentially saying the moral absolutes of religions are dumb for that reason, because they don't reflect the nature of our situation.
Yeah, just
the nature of the
the
nature of the complexity of our situation.
To broaden that, the having any absolutes is it's just a bad approach to philosophy and understanding, because that's not how things work. That's not how you get knowledge and stuff. What does it mean for a person to be genuine to you?
To act in accordance with well-reasoned values. Like to have values that are well-reasoned and to act in accordance with them. To repeat myself pretty much in a rephrase. But yeah, that gets into like what defines well-reasoned values, which is my entire existentialist pursuit, and adhering to them and living by them is like self-evident. It's having your actions map to your words and not just saying things.
So if someone's acting on autopilot, unfiltered,
or
they're
if
not
someone's
genuine,
or if someone's acting genuine, sorry, if someone's acting in accordance with poorly reasoned values.
So
it's like, sure, you're being genuine, but for values that are really poorly reasoned, and at their root, like that breaks.
So if you're just being like a sheep copying what other people are doing, you're not really being genuine.
You're genuinely disingenuine.
Genuinely disingenuine. So to be genuine, you have to do some thinking about what it even means to be genuine.
Exactly. It's one of those things that just doesn't have anything in and of itself. It's based on other things.
So just telling people, be your genuine self doesn't
But if your genuine self is a terrible prick, reason first, then be genuine. Then don't be genuine to yourself, be genuine to well-reasoned principles, and like forge yourself in relation to well-reasoned principles. Don't just let yourself be whatever it is, because like the phenomenon of the self is ephemeral, and a lot of our basemost selves are crazy garbage animals.
Also, so there is no like genuine self, because the brain is plastic.
Yes, exactly. There is no pearl, there's no diamond, there is no central thing that you're going to find. It's something that you're shape-shifting constantly as you go along, and you're trying to shape a phenomenon of self, a basemost pattern in your head of repetitions, of cycles, of loops that you are comfortable existing as. And that is your genuine self. Like, find not just that you are comfortable existing in, but like that is in accordance with well-reasoned principles and is not dissonant with reality itself. Like something that is like...
So, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Being disingenuine would be like saying, like, these are my values, but then doing something that goes against your values.
Yes, being hypocritical is definitely disingenuine behavior. Or like saying these are my values and then refusing to reason as to why you hold them.
They're just like values that the culture...
Yeah, and then you're holding really strong to them. So you're saying like, I'm being genuine to my values, but you haven't reasoned as to why you hold those values. So that is fundamentally disingenuine in my definition.
When on your intellectual journey did existence itself become like a psychedelic experience to you?
Oh, I guess it never wasn't. Like, I wouldn't have had the word for it until trying psychedelics, but like, yeah, there was never a point at which reality wasn't like I guess I didn't have that much of a normalization blind spot when it comes to the big main one being reality itself. It always
Can
felt
you
like things
explain
were
what a normalization
off.
blind spot is for the recording?
Yeah, and to elaborate, a normalization blind spot is a stable environmental or otherwise condition in an organism's environment that is so stable as to not be worth dedicating any neurological resources towards comprehending or reflecting on. Yeah, I like calling it the normalization blind spot because it highlights what it functions as psychologically. It's essentially like those aspects of our environment and those aspects of consciousness or those ideas or cultural things, just because the things which are the most stable in an organism's environment are least worth dedicating neurological resources to, because there's only so many thoughts that can be had in a given moment, and there's each thought that is had has a direct and tangible metabolic cost. So you would want resources of thought, like literal calories and like structures representing thoughts in the brains of organisms, to be more structured towards the things that change the most and trying to like predict those changes and the patterns to them, than wasting thought on the most stable things. And it has led in more consciously developed organisms like us to a tendency to not think about the things that are the most stable and consistent, which happens to be the case for things like the religions that people are indoctrinated to, or the values of the culture, or the means by which resources are managed within a culture, which is capitalism all around here. Existence itself is probably the biggest thing that fits into that blind spot. It's the underlying thing. It's the fact that organisms typically don't live in a constant state of panic at their own existence, and the ones that do get picked off, such that the gene pool is represented by organisms that are gleefully unaware and perfectly content with just existing without it living in a panic state, because there's so much to contemplate in any given moment. They have mechanisms by which to circumvent that taxing and potentially detrimental detrimental state of mind. So we're biased more heavily in the other direction of just sort of coasting and not thinking about things and being okay with that. And that manifests as a lot of problems on the level of psychology and society. I hope that answers your question.
That's amazing. So it seems like organisms have of a certain complexity have a bias towards only pinging out things that are novel instead of being constantly like...
The variables, not the constants. Things that are more variable and things that are less constant. The constants get slipped by, whereas the variables get a lot of attention.
But for yourself, existence was always kind of whack to you as you became a sentient.
Yeah, no, I suppose it was because my parents and teachers and role models and whatnot did a very shit job of making anything make sense. But like, on some level, I knew that like things didn't quite make sense, and it was mostly down to the fact that things weren't being explained in a way that was coherent. And like, but even when things are coherent, there's still a level at which things are foundationally absurd and psychedelic, because we're all hallucinating our own subjectivities right now, and that is inherently whack on some level. And I didn't know how to put that into words when I was young, and I was I was uncertain of myself and confused, but like I knew that there was something there that everyone was just sort of sidestepping and like circumventing with all these conflicting belief systems that serve to comfort themselves and each other. So I eventually navigated towards atheism, and eventually my own interpretation of nihilism, which I, as you know, refer to as nihilistic realism.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I just accepted everything.
That's what the species is
the
biased for.
default way that
And not just humans,
brain.
but monkeys and cats, and like I don't see like Coconut sleeping above my head, and he's not in a panic state.
Yeah, I would just be content with like playing with my toys, not questioning my overall existence at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a cow.
The constants
isn't like
slip under.
Yeah.
The things that are the most stable are the least likely to be thought of in existence, most of all.
And that's a way to conserve energy, you said?
Fundamentally, since there's only so many thoughts that can be had in a given moment, or so many thought that can be had in a given moment, depending on how you look at it. And since each one has a direct metabolic cost, and since our ancestry developed in a situation where every calorie had a direct like actionable cost and a direct tangible cost to like the like it has to go find more food to be able to have more thoughts. Like everything is sort of min-maxed to the point where like you can't afford to waste thoughts on thinking about the thing. Like you have to cleave away, like, okay, what types of thoughts are expendable and what types of thoughts do I have to focus on in order to not die.
It's like thoughts of meta-awareness are less necessary than
They're
thoughts of your immediate environment. And
yes, they're metabolically expensive. They have a higher cost in terms of the resources used, in terms of the calories used to structure the neurons, because structuring neurons is energy intensive, so wasting that on things that don't correspond to your survival is a direct path to like getting your genes weeded out of the pool.
That is an interesting thing. It just hit me like every thought takes energy.
Yeah. And like we take it for granted now because food is much easier to come by, but like in the past when food wasn't easy to come by, it was like, oh shit, every thought is like tangibly like has you have to use them wisely because you only have so many before you have to go, before all of your thoughts are directed and hardwired and overridden to be, I need food now, I need food now, I need food now, okay, oh, I got food, okay, now I can think about other things. But like otherwise, no, you're trapped in the food loop, and then yeah, you die.
Yeah. Oh yeah, most people we're very detached from the fact, partly by nature of what we are as conscious minds, from the fact that every thought is physical, like has an underlying...
Has a physical correlate. Every thought has a shape, is how I like to think of it. Every thought literally has a shape. If you like, okay, cut start of the thought, cut end of the thought, and then looked at that play out in space and time and could actually like trace out the neuronal firing, there would be a shape to that. It would be much like a tree branch or like a lightning strike. But every thought has a literal tangible shape. Sometimes it's a loop, sometimes it's a complex cycle spiral of a shape. Sometimes it's a single branch or multiple branches. But every thought has a tangible shape of the neuronal branching and firing patterns.
As we emerge, we're completely blind to that fact, but...
Yeah, but neurology is lending us insight more and more to it.
Our species is still in our infancy, that's not something that's generally talked about much or taught to kids.
Yeah,
because
since neurology is in its infancy as a field of study.
Yeah, and since admitting that thoughts are physical comes close to being along the lines that we're not disembodied souls.
Blasphemous to one of the main cultural goals being death denial, death of their denial of their death.
So, existence was always kind of like a psychedelic experience to you.
Yeah, but primarily due to the normalization blind spot not being necessarily operational in me. So it's something broken that led me to like be able to see through the cracks of what I would normally have been constrained by.
That's interesting. That means that people who have less normalization biases in general probably have a stronger propensity towards like actually trying to understand things versus someone who just accepts everything the way it is as less like curiosity, or can just like, no, this
can just coast.
Yeah. Shall we move on? Have we spoken?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think that covers it. You can refine that into something.
There's some. I'm glad we're recording this, because if we weren't, I would have been like, we should have recorded that.
Cool. Look at the pops where my knuckles cried.
That's hilarious.
Wait, what?
Like echoes in the room.
It's cool how the sharp frequency is represented in visual there. Very cool. Onward.
What does it mean for a person to be smart to you?
Oh, I guess intelligence is fundamentally about how you approach thinking, which is essentially your philosophy. Like how you arrange your ideas and thoughts relative to one another, and like how you approach concepts and ideas, because like it's not smart to know a bunch of things. Knowing a bunch of things isn't intelligence, it's just knowledge, and like you can know a bunch of things and then sort that knowledge terribly relative to itself and relative to other things and come to terrible conclusions and be a terrible person, or just be like an obnoxious or an obnoxious, distracted or
like still believing what you wish was true and
Yeah.
being like a theologian
Yeah, that too.
defender of
I was talking more like the Hank Green type thing, where you know a lot of science facts and you know a lot of that, but you don't actually like think about the implications of the ideas at all, or like weave them into any comprehensive framework of
like you have no
philosophy.
well-reasoned conclusions,
But, like,
so you just think you're
intelligence is-
smart because you know a lot of stuff.
Intelligence is fundamentally about like the ways in which you've structured your thoughts towards the attempt of comprehending reality. Like, because it's ultimately within that framework. Like, there's no like you can be really great at Harry Potter lore, and like, congratulations, like you intuitively know, like you don't have, like all the like. Never mind. Sorry, Harry Potter lore isn't a good one because there's no consistent logic to it. Something with really consistent logic, or like chess. Okay, you can be like an amazing, intelligent chess player, but like you've dedicated your intellectual potential, your neural architecture and your intellectual potential towards memorizing and getting really great at the rules of a game. Which, like, okay, like, but yeah, that's more intelligence than knowledge, because like knowledge is like knight can move in this position and can jump over things. Pawn can do this, but it can't do that. That's like knowledge. And knowledge can even be like, okay, this strategy usually leads to this outcome. But like intelligence is more about like your general arrangement of the ideas relative to one another, and the way in which you strategize and utilize the knowledge that you have and like apply it.
So a person can become really good at one domain, but like
well, they can specialize,
yeah,
but it's like specialized knowledge gaining instead of generalized intelligence, because like I guess they can be intelligent within a narrow domain of things, but like
really intelligent at mathematics and can twist your brains in interesting ways that other humans haven't in the past.
It's definitely
intelligent at physics.
Yeah, like it's definitely a plastic thing and can apply in many different ways to many different things. But
like when you're saying an intelligent person, what does it mean for a person to be intelligent? Like
they try to comprehend reality as it is, and they have consistent reasoning and good like logic skills.
To be smart in general is to like not have your intelligence limited to some domains, and then there's other domains that you don't question or think about at all. It's like thinking about all like aspects of things.
Yeah, so yeah, as Emma was saying, in part it is the capacity to understand the value of generalizing your knowledge base in order to fill out your picture of reality, and not just specializing your knowledge gaining in one particular field and thinking that you're like that's enough, that you comprehend enough of reality, and always seeking to know more about more in all domains of things, and more importantly about reflecting on and integrating the knowledge such that the connections between the things that you learn are more like.
So what you learn better informs your actions too, and is like integrated into actually how you like view the world. So it's not like two domains of thought are completely
that's a whole other thing, but yeah, definitely
separated in your mind. Like you might.
Well, yeah, intelligence is also about like integrating your knowledge into your not only into what I was talking about, like the larger framework of understanding and how knowledge connects to other knowledge and fills out a large picture of reality, but also like letting knowledge inform your decision making and letting your understanding of reality inform how you operate within it, as you were alluding to.
Yeah, I like the thing you were alluding to before, though, how knowledge connects to other knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's like forming connections between things instead of how school makes it seem like
disconnected facts in different domains. Like chemistry is different from biology, is different from mathematics, is different from science in general. Instead of like talking about how everything is a different piece, and here's how and here's why and here's how the pieces connect.
So to be smart means to be intellectually honest, radically intellectually honest.
Well, fundamentally, approaching knowledge gaining in a way that is disconnected from your like desires about reality is part of intelligence too. Like it's hard to answer a question like what would you define as intelligence, what would you define as smartness in a single thing, because there's so many different ways that you can talk about it. But yeah, adherence to intellectual honesty, and also like what I was going to say with the adherence is adherence to your epistemic responsibility, like the things that you think you know, like understanding that you're responsible to like verify the probabilities of that, and then like when you say that you know them, you only say you know them in context of like the likelihood of them being true. It's like, I know this because this indicates this, and that likely means this. It's never like, oh, this is absolutely true, and I'm not gonna like figure out why. And it's like, oh, it's because that person said so.
So
it's like
unbound subjective speculation isn't smart because it's not connected.
Of course not. No, unbound subjective speculation is thinking outside of scientific thinking. Science is meant to mitigate unbound subjective speculation inherently.
I bring that up because it seems like a big overarching theme with intelligence is like
avoiding unbound subjective
mapping
speculation.
your knowledge, your understandings to reality, not...
Yeah, that was the first thing I said in relation to it.
Okay. Next question. Are you ready? Let me take a sip of water.
Yeah, I'll do a coffee.
Ooh, I'm excited for this.
You know, elephants don't drink water through their nose, but they take it up into their nose and then they put it into their mouth. They like lift up their trunk and then drop it off. So they use their nose as a holder for a minute.
Do they breathe through their nose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
but they can also use it to. They can't
just drink. Yeah, they can't just drink through it, but they can use it to like drink, like fill it up most of the way and then stop, and then like literally just burn it and go and like drink it out of the tip of their nose.
That's cool.
No, it's absurd.
I feel like if we had really long noses and we could use them to move liquid around.
Yeah, you gotta transport some wine. Oh yeah, you got a beer? Yeah, man, I got it right here.
Don't they like
just sip some of your trunk that you have sealed off at the time?
Can they spray it on themselves?
Yeah, they get sprayed at themselves. Yeah. They wash themselves with it and stuff. It's great.
Wow. With their noses. Noses can evolve to stretch out, and that becomes an advantageous thing.
And then it gets musculature and can be used as an appendage.
Whoa, yeah, a nose arm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very
interesting. I guess the same thing kind of happens to the mouth with like a beak. It stretches out.
Yeah. It reminds me of like 2 feet and a head with an ostrich, or 2 feet and a head and a tail with a T-Rex. It's like, yeah, I only need this to get along, but like they have an additional limb on their face. It's great. Anyway, next question.
Just a side note, it seems like a pretty standard evolutionary thing, I guess, with mammals to have one hole for eating and one to breathe. Like 2 separate holes is what I'm trying to say. But
yeah, it seems like the ones that tried to dual purpose that one never really have a good time of it.
Yeah.
They cannot eat while breathing. Brutal.
Is confidence a good thing?
Depends on what your philosophy is, depends on what your base positions are, it depends on what you're being confident in. Like a Nazi confidently rounding up Jews, not necessarily a... If you're confident in a really faulty belief, or a belief that has like really shaky premises, but you're like really confident that like, oh no, I'm 100% sure, like I'm 200% sure, like I'm fucking sure, like Jesus died for my sins. He died for my sins, man. You can't fucking... Like, sometimes it can escalate to, or, like, this is our species, and we cannot, like, you can be confident in something that's absurd. Like, it's about directing it. It's like excitement, or it's like, pride. Like, being proud. Like, the concept of pride. Like, are you proud of your achievements, or are you proud of something that you were born into and had absolutely, like, national pride, or, like, something that you had absolutely no control over, or like has... Oh, hi, Coconut. It depends on your reasoning and what you're confident in and why. I don't think it's a trait that is inherently positive. It's one of those words that you got to be careful about. Like, in that vein, it's akin to reasoning. Like, you can have very poor reasoning, or you can have very good reasoning. It's inherently not a positive or negative term. Just like philosophy. You can have good philosophy or bad philosophy.
So... I Yeah, I don't really see what the value in confidence is very much, because it seems like people can get overconfident and be wrong, and then it's hard, like they'll attach their ego to their confidence, and then it's like a hit to their ego to finding out they're wrong, and then they don't want to admit they're wrong.
Yeah, it can become a loop.
So, like understanding that, like, your knowledge always can be updated. You should never be confident be like, I'm 100% sure I'm so confident about this, but
yeah, that comes down to the truth being degrees of certainty thing. Like, you can never be 100% confident in any outcome or any situation. It always comes down to the variables and how you know what you think you know, and with what degree of certainty you know it.
Yeah, by virtue of how we tend to talk to each other, we give off the impression that, like, this is how things are.
Yeah.
But it's important to recognize that, like, even if we're talking confidently about something, like, we're always open to like correcting and revising.
Yeah, it's like confidence is always good to be kept in check. It's by humility. Like, you gotta recognize that, like, no matter how confident you are in something, you gotta recognize the boundaries of it. Like, I'm confident I exist, but like, snap, like, if I'm all of a sudden in a different realm and it's like, oh shit man, you were being simulated the whole time, it's a prank, and then I'd be like, oh shit, I guess I didn't necessarily exist in the way that I thought I did, but I still exist. And then it'd be like, oh shit, no, and then they'd split me into 5 different beings. I'd be like, oh, I guess I wasn't me, I was all of them. And like, it would just all break down, and like, but like, it doesn't, I'm talking it's all about degrees of certainty, and like, I can be confident that I exist with like the same degree of confidence that, or like, for a better one in that vein, I can be confident that this TV is here in the same degree of confidence that I can be certain that this microphone is here, like, for the same reasons and for the same principles. And like, you can use that same reasoning for a lot of different things. Like, I can be confident that the moon is there for similar reasons that I can be confident that the sun is there. For like, I can be confident that this is having a gravitational influence on this thing based on like, and like, you can extrapolate a whole, like, there's consistencies to reality, and that allows for the degree of certainty to lead you in a lot of useful places. Even though it's never 100%, it can point you in a lot of like, it from absolute chaos of uncertainty of everything to narrower and narrower and narrower, and that's the best we got, and it's good enough.
Yeah, confidence, I think it's something you gotta be careful about, and there's not too much value in it in general.
If it's unchecked, like, I'm not saying there's not too much value in it in general. I'm saying that, like, don't let it get unchecked. Don't let it, like, be it's dangerous to just let it be on its own, but like, it's a tool. Like,
yeah, you don't want to be unsure about everything all the time and never be confident about anything, because then you'll never navigate reality effectively.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. Yeah.
That you shouldn't be so undecisive and
lacking confidence in, like, your knowledge or understanding of things. Like, you have to have a foundation. It's just like, never go to 100%, and never, like, there's no point in zero. Well, actually, 0% is useful if you know that you know nothing about something. It's humble. Like, it's the starting point, because the starting point is like zero awareness of anything.
You can be confident that you know nothing about this topic.
There you go. Like,
confidence should be realistic.
It comes down to my initial response to this was that it depends on how you define it, and like, what you were talking about. Like, what are you confident in, and why, and what's your reasoning?
In general, you gotta be, confidence should align with, like, what you actually know about stuff.
Confidence is higher order, and you need to have the lower order stuff established before it has any purpose.
What do you mean? What would be the lower order stuff, sorry?
Like, a good philosophy. Like, good reasoning, critical thinking skills. Like, before you start implementing something like confidence in your... like, because imagine you don't have good critical thinking skills, and your foundational beliefs are skewed and bonkers, and then you start having confidence. It's like, oh yeah, Jesus is Lord, I love my Jesus.
I see.
Like, yeah, so it's a higher order concept that is established and best implemented on stable foundational concepts that are, like, reasonable and well thought out.
Like, you're confident that God is doesn't exist, or it would be an alien type.
Yeah. Well, I'm confident that if the God concept existed, that it would, if it was to be logically consistent, then it would be an alien type thing.
How could a religion ever be phased out?
I think actually I've thought about that quite a bit, and I think it would happen incidentally if you just educated the population enough. You never even really need to target religion specifically, like, and if you ever tried, it would cause chaos as it
You
always
said
does.
you just
Whenever
have to educate the population?
Yeah, I was going to elaborate on that. But yeah, as
No, I was just asking because I didn't hear what you said.
No worries. Yeah,
It would happen incidentally.
Yeah, it would happen incidentally as you educated the population more and more. But like any attempt to directly root out religion, just like any attempt to circumvent, it would be mirrored in culture. Just like any attempt to like encroach Muslim schooling on a Christian turf, or like or try to get religion out of schools in America. Like any active resistance against religion will always lead to more fervency in religion, and the opposite happening: more propagation of religion, more zealotous believers.
So you don't target religious people directly?
Yes, no,
that's useless.
You target their like public education systems. Essentially, you make it such that the quote unquote science class is so well structured and well like answers every big question, and like highlights our ignorances and why they're ignorances and what we know and what we don't know and why so well that the attempted what is it like shoving something where it doesn't belong, the attempted square in a round peg that is religion and religious thought form wouldn't even fit anymore, because like people are so protected against it and have such well-developed critical thinking skills and have such a wide knowledge base of the reality in which they exist that their minds no longer become potential host for the virus that is religion.
The problem with that is that parents would recognize that their kids are getting good at critical thinking. Oh, sorry.
Well, yes, but no.
Why is my child questioning our religion and reasoning so well?
You could, yeah, maybe, but you could do it. You could do it in a way that's like so over their heads that they don't realize what's happening. Like with a good example is Elden Ring. What's happening in the actual story and the actual messages and what's being said and what groups are being criticized in what ways and what thought forms and what aspects of humanity are being criticized and in what ways is so beyond the scope of most people to get what's actually being said, that like most people don't even know that they should be offended. Most people don't even know that their dogmatic adherence to their beliefs is being criticized. And it goes over their heads to the point where they realize what's going on.
But I don't know how that addresses the fact that the kids might question their parents' religions.
Yeah, I don't think that would cause enough. Like, it's not like the religion is being called out directly. Like things that, like evolution is always going to be like a sour point, and like at a certain point we're talking about like, okay, well you're just going to receive backlash, and then I'm like, okay, then there's nothing we can do and it's all fatalism. But like in a realistic situation, if you wanted to root out religion, it's more realistic to not fight it directly and to indirectly root it out via better education. But fundamentally, to get better education, you need to have a population of intellectual people in control, which is catch-22, because it's not going to happen. So on some level, yes, we're doomed, but on another level, like if you wanted to have that, that's the way that it would happen, because any attempt to address religion head on is just like when religions address each other head on. They see it as, oh, you're just trying to push your beliefs on me, and then they kill each other and get angry. But yeah, if you did it subtly and just slowly like made the belief more and more pointless because it answered less and less relative to what was comprehended, and like you would slowly make it obsolete.
I guess sort of what's happening today.
Sort of what's happening, but it's incidental today. It's not engineered.
Do you think community, like developing communities of intellectual honesty, like fostering a culture where like, because people.
If you could have something that could replace that community aspect, yeah. Because that's a big thing that's lacking in the in the absence of religious dogmatism and community feature and like
You
church
have
of this local area.
organized religion, but you don't really have organized
you organized religion versus disorganized
Just-
atheism and like
Yeah.
lack and
secular.
irreligious. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest aspects of it. We're bad at getting organized, because I think when a lot of people like leave religion, they don't all leave to the same
Conclusions.
islands of logic necessarily. Some of them go to different layers of the delusional mind space that
Yeah,
is potential
doesn't
to
say-
occupy.
It's like being a Catholic, like it has a
Yeah, it has a definitive label to it, but when you're a nun,
like I'm not religious.
when you're not religious,
that
you could
means
be
so many things.
any rainbow color of crazy: ghosts, spirits, chakras.
So what you're saying is we need a cult of nihilistic realists.
We need like something
An
that is
organized
like, okay, these are the terms and these are the tenets, and to
This
be a
is
part
our
of this
community.
organization, these are the things that you adhere to, and these are your values. And you have reason to these conclusions, and like you agree with all this reasoning that we've spelled out that leads to each one of these major points, foundational conclusions. And yeah, you would need to have a society built around that, where it's like, okay, now we're going resource hunting. Okay, now we're doing gardening. Okay, we're
Now we're
studying
developing a curriculum for our children.
Yep. Now we're building yeah. It's hard not to go to fatalism when so many stupid people have so much power, because stupid people are easy to control with money, and money has all the power. So you have a situation where the people with the most money keep stupid people in power because they can buy them and they can shift them around and control what they do and think, and it's hard to get any change actually happening on any realistic level. So I don't know how you would phase it in a realistic way against the mountain of both stupidity and financial incentive to keep things as they are, if not worse than they currently are.
You phase it out by creating a secular, intellectually honest organization or group or society thing that's so appealing that people just leave the religions they're born into to come join the group that's like has their shit together more because they're actually based on reason and like they're
Good
just having a
principles,
better time managing resources. But yeah, it's tough, and the CIA would it's hard. There's so many forces against good reasoning, like of managing things better. Like people have incentives to keep things
the people with the most capacity to change things have the most incentive to keep things as they are.
You got people who want to keep believing what they want to believe and spreading that belief to other people, and you got people who want to keep like
this
hoarding
is a whole
resources.
segment in this
Yeah.
is a whole segment in the next upload. But yeah, yes.
Okay, what topics should a person who realize that they're very confused start by learning about? Like, how do they even approach becoming more honest and having a better understanding? They're like, I don't know anything about anything. How do I even direct my approach to information? Like, there's so much information out there and everyone's saying all sorts of things. How do I
good place
know what
to
is
start.
real?
A good place to start, believe it or not, is YouTube.
YouTube. There's an endless stream of so many things.
Yes, but in particular, try to learn about human psychology first. Psychology and astronomy, I'd say, were the most foundational and important pieces of like knowledge stuff that help order one's thoughts relative to like what any of this actually is, if you're just coming to terms with how confused you are and how little you know. Because psychology teaches you about how you think and how you like what you're susceptible to, and like the if you learn from good educators, you'll learn about how pretty much every aspect of our psychology has evolutionary basis and evolutionary reasons for its existence and its continued existence, and how our perception is influenced and how our biases are influenced our impulses. So learning about the limitations of your mind and the mannerisms, the innate biases, and the things that are just built in and that you're susceptible to and that you have to navigate. Learning about that stuff really helps you to like arm yourself against it and navigate your yeah, because there's a lot of traps that you'll fundamentally fall into if you go for like philosophy first or something without first addressing like fundamentally uh, just stuff that's wired into how you think. If you don't address that first and go there first, then it's hard to get the most out of other fields. Because it's first examining like the thinking thing itself before you start filling the thinking thing with knowledge through the filter that is not yet refined. So it helps refine the filter of thought itself because it helps the mechanism that is doing the thinking understand like what it's susceptible to and the directions it goes and why it's more biased to go there and how to circumnavigate that.
But coming from the perspective of a very confused person, how do I even know any of what you're saying is right? And does it ultimately come down to like you?
Well, what do you want to know? Like, do you want to understand reality, or do you want to reaffirm the things that you wish are true?
Yes,
Like, if
like
you want to
if you
understand
wanna
reality,
I want to become not confused and have an honest philosophy, but I need to figure out what that even means and how do I trust what anyone's saying is actually gonna lead me more towards truth or just further away from it.
you have to learn to detect logical consistency and inconsistency, and just refine your critical thinking skills. Like, you have to refine your critical thinking skills and gain insight on your psychology and like gain insight on philosophy. But foundationally, it's pardon. You gain insight on your critical thinking skills and your capacity to work with ideas and to address ideas in honest ways. Uh,
So you have to take some personal epistemic responsibility in the sense that like you might be like, hey, I'll learn this thing from this place, and but you have to like
be
you
willing to
watch
think
the
it through
thing
and
and you think about how is what this person's saying valid,
what is it based
and
in?
yeah,
Like,
what like you
where
have to try and connect it to things and see if it makes logical sense. What you said, critical
you have
thinking.
to exercise your brain. You have to exercise parts of your brain that may have atrophied over time as you were lost in delusional fantasy.
So gaining an honest philosophy involves actually trying to think things through for yourself and not just like listening to what other people
And like keeping an ear out
saying.
for like inconsistencies and trying to figure out like why are people saying the things that they're saying? Are they saying it because they're telling people what they want to hear? Are they saying it because it's what they want to hear? Are they saying it because they've been told because they have a financial incentive to do so? Or are they saying it because it's just something that's been handed down from generation to generation? Like, you need to think through not only the information that you're being told by various sources that you come across, but the incentive as to why they're telling you it, and if they're legitimately just trying to spread information, and if they're not. And usually, it's not terribly hard to tell the difference. Usually, there are red flags that point out the people who are trying to just get your attention and feed things in you that like make you feel like you're gaining knowledge, but in reality you're just gaining a sense of mystery and awe that has nothing behind it, that'll just lead you down subjective speculation roads. And there's a difference between that and the people who are genuinely just trying to lend insight into aspects of reality, and trying to help you with the honing of your reasoning capacity or your understanding of philosophy or psychology. And the difference is quite apparent after you get a little bit of a hang of it. Like, there's already like foundational resources out there that you can start with, like Qualia Soup or Therametries.
Even SciShow,
Yeah,
like
even SciShow, like just like that's
like it's presenting information about reality gained through science. So like a
yes.
fundamental thing about developing an honest philosophy is like understanding what the philosophy of science is and what the value of science is and how it differs from say a framework like religion
He's
and
not
its
necessarily
approach to
the
knowledge.
best philosopher of science. Like, some of
Oh,
what he says is absurd.
SciShow? I was just saying in general.
Oh
Like,
yes.
if you're going to work towards having an honest philosophy,
Mm.
eventually, like, you as a child, you came to a point, you're like, huh, there's this religion thing, and then there's this like science thing that's trying to like saying that they have knowledge about reality, and so does religion,
And they
but
have completely different approaches where religion just sort of assumes stuff and tries to justify that, whereas science is constantly about examining things and running tests.
yeah, so did you sort of chaos into understanding that science was a better way of gaining knowledge, or did you just
It just
like
seemed obvious in a
intuitively
way.
think that you're like, oh, there's actually like explanations, like reasons for why they believe this based on what was observed versus religion, and people are just making claims about stuff, but there's not really
Well,
reasons
I
behind why
understood that
they're
the default
claiming.
position was ignorance, and something about religion and emerging in our deep past gave a red
It's
flag to
like a
me.
red flag
Yeah, it's like, okay,
to
so we're
child
emerging from
you.
ignorance. If we're emerging
A
from
flag
ignorance
that
now,
never goes off in some people's
if we're
brain for their whole life.
if we're emerging from ignorance now, and science is just barely getting a foothold on things, and we're just barely starting to comprehend things, and religion is ancient,
Then the
and
stuff that
and
was
hates
claimed
science,
2,000 years
like yeah,
ago.
it might have been just a simplification heuristic in trying to make sense of overwhelming reality and trying to get on with the surviving thing
So you
instead of
understood
comprehending reality.
that you
Yeah, I
understood
understood
that
that on a
was
level, even if I
religion was like
couldn't.
an evolved cultural mechanism before you even heard of like Daniel Dennett's book.
A way to get on with the surviving thing instead of getting caught in the existential crisis mode of over comprehending the stable things. Existence itself being the first and foremost, as we talked about earlier. But I forget where I was going after that, but that's okay.
Nice. That's a good answer. So, what topics should a person who is very confused start by learning about? You said
Oh yeah, I talked about psychology a bit, and
psychology,
you
and then yeah.
questioned off a tangent there. But yeah, fundamentally, psychology just lends insight into one's own mind and helps you navigate it, so you don't fall. Because it helps with your filtering mechanisms, having a good understanding of psychology, and also developing your critical thinking skills. Of course, is literally just developing your filtering mechanisms. It's better to do that first, because that way, when you come across information in fields like biology or astronomy, then you can actually filter the information into a larger context that makes coherent sense. Instead of using it or filtering it through like confirmation bias or other broken ways of filtering information, that just leads to more confusion instead of less. And then, yeah, astronomy gives a lot of humbling perspective on the scale of reality and the nature of things, and it's a much more coherent and awe-inspiring story than any of the religious fantasies that a lot of people escape from. Actual astronomy is fascinating, and yeah, it's underappreciated. And yeah, it gives a lot of context and perspective to people who lived their lives trapped in a false awe of the small little story from the Middle East. That was supposed to be the peak of awe when they don't even really have a grasp on what the concept is. Just slowly learning astronomy will slowly give them a concept of that, and then eventually it will click in their heads and they'll realize.
So, if you're very confused about things, start from a position of not assuming anything is true with 100, like, don't have a, like, well, I'm very confused, but I know God's real, because that's
No
what people
assumptions.
told. Yeah, no assumptions about what is real. You're, like,
Just
start
seek
from a
to understand
blank
as it
slate
is.
and try, yeah, and learn about biases and fallacies, so you know, and like psychological tendencies and how our brains operate, so you know what, yeah, what we have propensities, how
So
the
you can
process
better
of,
operate the thing that you are. So you can
yeah,
better navigate and steer the thing that you are.
yeah. It's tough, like most people never develop an honest philosophy, and it's a hard thing to do because like brains navigating information in a coherent way is difficult.
It is taking a chaos thing and then shaping it into order. It is
Very hard. And
fighting entropy, as Metzinger says.
this was great. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and insights
And
with
ponderings.
Yes, your ponderings. I enjoy it very much, and there's a lot more questions and thoughts and tangents to go on. Can I ask one more question?
Fine, one more.
How can a person become more comfortable existing as a mind, more at home within themselves? Or is that even a goal one should try to obtain comfort of being?
It's not necessarily about comfort so much as it is calm. Like, you just need to be okay with the inevitable storm that is consciousness, and like just find some because it's like an elastic that constantly wobbles, and you're just trying to like find some place that it comes back to instead of just like constantly being the wobbles, and it's just like stabilizing and finding a center is about cultivating comprehension of reality. Helps quite a bit, like having a stable idea of what is likely true of things.
So things to come back to?
Yeah.
In your mind, that you're like, okay, so I know this, like my day-to-day consciousness, like sometimes I can think more clearly, and other times it seems like my mind's just all over the place. But like
coming back to foundational concepts that are deeply true helps.
Like recognizing that like there is really no, like, you might be seeking a stability that's not even possible by the nature of what you are as a changing, constant brain.
There are consistencies,
fluctuating hormones and stuff
in reality, but there's an inherent instability to it, and being at terms with that and comfortable with that is more important than trying to find a false state of peace in stability that was never there, but instead trying to find calm within the inherent chaos state and trying to mitigate it as best you can by coming back to and forging a stable core of consistent reasoning that is self-connected, where a lot of different things connect to a lot of other different things because of the logical consistency and the implications of things. People can do that with delusions too, like the God simplification heuristic and all the real life lore that people can make up in order to make it consistent and wrap around itself. But you can do that with reasoning too.
Interesting. Like a religious person who can like keep coming back to the idea of like Jesus is true.
Died for my sins.
Foundational understand that's my rock.
There you go. Like something to keep. Yeah, exactly. To stop from going hollow, as they call it in Dark Souls.
So, is there a particular rock you come back to? Like ideas that if you're
Infinity.
Like feeling
the objective
chaos,
infinitum.
Just the fact that we exist within an objective
that we
reality.
We
are.
That we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just that there's a lot of ones to come back to, but yeah. Just the largest possible context, the objective infinitum is a good one.
Interesting. I would not have thought that, but that's just, that's a good one because that's like everything. You're like, oh yeah, everything exists. It all is, and then you can narrow in within that to different things within the objective infinitum, like evolution or subjectivities or...
Good day.
Thank you so much, Niall. I love you.
Thank you, Emilia. I love you too. All right. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, post them below and they will be added to the long list that Em has been preparing. If you are unaware, this podcast is an extension of the main Nihilistic Realism channel, where I post the occasional philosophy essay. Cheers.